mainly in here.
You want to do the section part?
Yes.
Okay, so this structure, the most visible structure of a split brain is the corpus callosum right here.
Okay.
Inferior to the corpus callosum and anterior, right here, is the septum pellucidum. Posterior to the septum pellucidum, this white band we call the fornix, right here. Posterior and inferior to the fornix is the location of my third ventricle. The third ventricle houses the choroid as well as the ependymal cells, which collectively secrete the cerebrospinal fluid, which somewhat fills the cerebral aqueduct, continuous with the fourth ventricle, and furthermore continuous with the central canal of the spinal cord. At the posterior end of the corpus callosum, we can identify the pineal gland. Pineal gland responsible for endocrine activity and primarily as a force in what we call regulating the circadian rhythms, the normal day and night functions of the body. Immediately inferior and posterior to the fornix, we can identify the thalamus, sensory input, information, cognition. And if we draw an imaginary line from the thalamus to the optic nerve, we identify the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus works intricately with the pituitary, especially in the formation of antidiuretic hormone by the posterior pituitary gland. Between the occipital lobe of the cerebrum and the cerebellum, we have the transverse fissure. Within the cerebellum, we have this white material that resembles the branches of a tree we know as the arbor vitae, surrounded by the gray matter, dark matter, the folia. At the base of the arbor vitae, we can identify the fourth ventricle. And we said the fourth ventricle is connected to the third ventricle by the cerebral aqueduct. Within the cerebrum, we have these elevated portions that we identify as the gyrus, and we have these undulated portions or depressions that we identify as the sulci. Medial
Flip it.
Medial to the cerebellum, we have this structure we identify as the vermis of the cerebellum, and we can, in what we say superior view, we can actually also observe the longitudinal fissure that separates the left from the right cerebral hemispheres.
Want me to flip it?
What did we miss? Did we talk about the olfactory bulbs connected to the temporal lobe by the olfactory tract? Cranial nerve number 2, a sensory nerve, exits the sclera of the eye and proceeds, what would we say, posterior to form the optic chiasma, and then proceeds superiorly to form the optic tract. Trigeminal nerve, a mixed nerve, situated just lateral to the pituitary gland, forms a rather common V shape. Trigeminal has sensory, especially sensory information from the face, as well as motor innervation of the muscles of mastication. That's about it.